For hundreds of years, those willing to drop a few shillings could ogle at mental patients in the Bethlehem Hospital. For just a couple more coins, you were even permitted to give them alcohol. Astonishingly, the hospital ran in this way for hundreds of years, eventually coining the term Bedlam. It seems like more than a coincidence that when the hospital closed in the early 1800s, the London Zoo opened along with the rest of the zoo world. This is just the beginning of a long and sickening past for zoos. People continue to describe captive animals as mental patients today.
We used to go to the Bronx Zoo, and in the Bronx Zoo, they had cages with the tigers, and what we would see is them pacing back and forth, and almost like how mentally ill people are.
However, zoos have changed a lot since then. Many zoos, like the Brandywine and Melbourne zoos, make animal welfare a top priority. At the Melbourne Zoo, free-ranging peacocks are even protected from their reflections during mating season.
They do respond to their reflection a lot more because they're at a heightened kind of level of aggression trying to challenge other males. So they sometimes see their own reflection and think that's another male challenging them back. And so what we try and do here is restrict any kind of reflective material at that time of year from the peacocks.
They also participate in research to help the wild counterparts of the animals housed in the zoos.
We're gearing up to help the University of Delaware with a project they're doing on jaguarundi in the wild. They need to set up camera traps in the wild, and they can find out what the cats are doing by seeing them on camera, but it's hard to tell them apart. If you're doing a study like this with a tiger, and a tiger walks by the camera, tigers all have very individual stripes, but a jaguarundi is a solid colored cat. It's much smaller. So we're going to utilize some of our animals and set up cameras in their enclosures, and we're going to try to position them in such a way using scents and things that would attract the animals, so they walk straight up into the camera, so they can use the facial differences to determine what cat is what in the wild.
Education is also an important aspect of zoos.
We do have an entire education department, and their building is located right outside the zoo. We have different programs, we have classes, we have a research project going on right now on the American kestrel that our education department is heading up. We try all the time, we have daily keeper talks twice a day. Usually it's the otters or the red pandas.
Despite these efforts, there's plenty of room for improvement. I visited the local zoos and interviewed international experts to find out more. Here's what I learned. For one thing, enclosures are too small and uncomfortable for the animals' liking in many zoos. Animals show their distress by pacing and shaking their heads. Some primates signal stress by making high-pitched noises, flicking their tongues in and out, and moving their jaws. These behaviors also include stereotypical behaviors, which are repetitive and serve no obvious purpose. In some cases, sadly, stresses go unnoticed, creating more problems for the animals. These stress behaviors actually have a name: zoochosis. Sadly, zoochosis is startlingly common, even in zoos today. Another important issue in animal welfare is the animals' diets. Typical zoo slop deprives carnivorous cats of the bones that are present in their natural diet. This means that their molars do not dull down all the way, which is essential for their dental hygiene. Some zoos, like the Philadelphia Zoo, serve something called chow to their animals.
Most of it they call Nebraska, it's a brand, and it's ground meat. 2 days a week they get bone. One's the long bone, which is basically just a bone, and that's for helping keep their teeth clean.
There are other issues with animal diets too.
But traditionally, a lot of zoos were feeding animals a lot of fruit, thinking that that was wild diet, but they were having a high proportion of fruit and not enough of the vegetables.
Today, a few top zoos even have a full-time nutritionist on staff. Animals can be mistreated by visitors as well. Creatures have actually died from eating the assorted candies and treats thrown in by visitors. Animals in captivity also face shorter lifespans and a 65% infant mortality rate. And although many zoos claim to aid in conservation efforts, they often treat conservation like a beauty contest. Only animals deemed cute or good-looking enough get the help.
We need to stop just doing the charismatic megavertebrates. You know, the gorillas, the elephants. We need to really help nature. And nature happens with all the creepy crawly things. While giant pandas are important to us for aesthetics, they're one of the few species on the planet that if they disappear, nothing happens. Unlike so many other species where if they disappear, an ecosystem unravels in both directions, there'd be a little more bamboo in the world.
In the end, only a small percentage of animals in zoos are actually threatened. In fact, only 1/5 of the animals in the National Zoo are threatened or endangered. But perhaps the biggest problem of all is the sheer amount of people who visit zoos. Each year, over 180 million people visit zoos and aquariums in the United States. That's more than all the baseball, football, hockey, and basketball games combined. All those people, combined with environmental sound, generate a lot of noise. Up to 90 decibels of noise to be exact, compared to noise levels of 27 decibels in some rainforest. This noise sounds a bit like this. That's 82 decibels, loud enough to cause hearing loss in humans who are a lot less sensitive to noise than most other animals.
Every single one of them have different hearing range frequencies, so they can hear a full range of stuff that we can't hear. Birds and elephants and giraffe and emu even, they can hear in the infrasound element. So that's stuff like vibrations through the ground and various things that they're more sensitive to that we don't even know is happening around us.
And things are even worse for animals near rides or performance stages, where noise levels can reach over 90 decibels. In addition to noises within the zoo, city noises can also be heard throughout zoos in urban areas. But again, the biggest culprits when it comes to loud noises are us, the visitors. Studies have shown the noise levels above 70 decibels increase vigilance and movement in animals. It's also detrimental to their health, sleep, and social behavior. Noise over 85 decibels can even cause hearing loss, increased heart rate, and mental stress.
Things like avoidance of wherever the fear-provoking stimuli is coming from. So that means hiding pretty much. Like they'll go and retreat and hide somewhere. That's a common fear response. We also look for things like agitation, which is you can see in their behavior. So things just like humans show agitation or irritability. You can see that in some animals as well.
Just think about your own life. How would you like 72 decibels of constant background noise? Just like you, animals need their peace and quiet, but they can't get that in all zoos. So what can be done to make a difference? There are many innovative solutions being put to the test in order to keep the noise down in zoos. The Melbourne Zoo, in particular, had some good ideas.
So what we've done is built in extra retreats for them, so they can escape into soundproof dens for when the concerts are on, and they just have access throughout that time, so they can get out, or they can choose to be out in the open, exposed to the noise, or they can go into these soundproof dens. We do a lot of fecal sampling for stress hormones, because you can actually evaluate how stressed an animal is by looking at its fecal samples, because we analyze them in the lab for changes in concentration.
In the Philadelphia Zoo and other zoos, the zookeepers use a process called desensitization to get animals used to the noise. For the first months at the zoo, animals are kept in an area with little to no noise. Then, the door to the exhibit is open and animals get to choice whether or not to go out into the open. They go out for longer and longer periods each day until they feel they're comfortable. However, this could prove dangerous for animals that are meant to be re-released into the wild.
You wouldn't want to desensitize any animals that are going back to the wild, because you want them to maintain that really strong fear response, because that's a survival element. Because in the wild, they need to be fleeing or responding to that sound to get away from any danger. So you need to make sure that all animals going back to the wild aren't desensitized to those kind of things. But what they're probably doing is desensitizing the zoo animals that are always going to live in zoos to those sounds.
Many zoos use the environment as a way to limit noise. It should become a priority for zoos to strategically landscape the zoo for sound reduction.
You can use the natural environment. I mean, our trees here make a great buffer. So you can imagine the freeway would be a lot louder if we didn't have these trees here for the sound to get dispersed.
My personal solution is a SH campaign. This campaign will raise awareness among zoo visitors about the harm their noise can cause animals. As part of the initiative, posters will be hung throughout the zoo, and workers at the zoo will wear buttons to remind visitors to keep the noise down. Hopefully, the campaign will create a sound environment in zoos similar to that in a library, and the animals wouldn't be the only ones to benefit from less noise.
Often it's better for the visitors if they're quieter too, because the animals will be more, like, they'll be closer and more relaxed as well.
But how will visitors know when they're getting too loud? Well, For years, teachers have been using devices like the Yacker Tracker to quiet down their students, which changes color to let the students know when noise levels are getting too high. What if a similar solution was implemented in zoos? Similarly to the Yacker Tracker, my device would flash red when noise levels reached above 60 decibels and yellow when they fell into the 40 to 59 decibel range. A similar method is being researched in the Melbourne Zoo.
But we were thinking about a sign that flashes on to say, shh, like quieten down, but we haven't tested the use of a sign like that, or like that decibel triggered sign using technology. That would be a really interesting study.
Who knows? These ideas could be the future of sound in zoos. Still, until that day comes, it would make a world of difference to the animals if you took it down a few notches the next time you visit a zoo.